Presenting today the development and evaluation of a pedestrian crossing alert system using LiDAR sensors. So take it away.
Thank you. Welcome everyone, and first off, let me just say it's really great to be back in person at the Research Showcase and see some of the colleagues I haven't seen in a while. But more so many new people, new faces, and students predominantly, which is great. And it's great to be here and exchange some ideas and some of the work that we've been doing over the past year or so. This project is a kind of like a small experiment that we've done at NJIT. My colleague, Dr. Joanne Lee, and a couple of students. I started as an idea, wasn't really an idea, but an unfortunate circumstance on our campus, and then they kind of gave us some idea of how to make things better. What happened was that there were several crashes or accidents. They're not accidents anymore. We call them crashes, involving pedestrians crossing at unmarked. They're not really crossings. They're just unmarked locations close to campus. And then there was a fatality. One of the students actually was hit by a car late night, and unfortunately it was a fatal accident. Or fatal crash, and we started thinking, what can be done to mitigate these kinds of situations, because it happened at an unmarked location where we know both students, faculty, staff cross, because there is the street divide actually is between the campus and pizzeria that people go to get pizza. And during daytime it's okay because it's not very it's open street. It has a lot of space also for parking, which allows some more visibility, but nighttime is kind of darker, and vehicles tend to drive at higher speeds, and so that's when it gets really dangerous. So what our idea was, if we could find a way to deploy some system for passive detection of pedestrians as they are about to cross the street. We could put that kind of system anywhere. It doesn't have to be even a regulated pedestrian crossing, and use that to alert the drivers, right? And so the first thing was, we'll think about how to really accomplish alert part, but first let's see if we can come up with a system that can be easily deployed, not very expensive, and effective, right? So we came up with this idea. We called it pedestrian crossing alert system, but it's essentially a detector that will detect pedestrians without them actually doing anything. So not a pet cross button, nothing. So pedestrians are just going to behave as they behave, and some of them, especially at this crossing that we were kind of targeting, know that crossing at that location is, not a good idea. It's also illegal, right? But they do it anyway. So now, if we ask them to do something before they cross, we may as well have a pedestrian crossing at that location. And in fact, there were discussions about putting pedestrian crossing there, but there are actually 2 pedestrian crossings within 200 feet, and people are still crossing here, and it was kind of again an idea to test putting these devices at places that may not have a crosswalk or regulated kind of pedestrian beacon or anything like that, any kind of control device. So the idea was, let's have these devices mounted at the curb and see if we can have a success in detecting pedestrians as they are about to cross, and then alert the drivers using, in our testing, in our experiment, some kind of MUTCD device, let's say a sign with a flashing beacon, rapid flashing beacon. But then also consider a system that could be expanded to provide alerts using some connected vehicle or CV2X technology, right? So it has to be something that that will create messages that can be digitally transmitted and can be transmitted in real time, and not just in real time, but in real time in very low latency, so that, because these are safety critical applications, safety critical messages, cannot be subject to delays of a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. That by the time the message is delivered, it's almost too late. So the technologies that we considered were different. There were already systems at that time that were mounted in actually in Newark, where our campus is, that use cameras, that use some kind of detection systems that are like infrared, things like that, but they're all mostly based on cameras and video detection. So what we try to do is we try to use LiDAR. So we thought that using LiDAR, first, it probably could be the ones that we used, and the title says 2-channel LiDAR. We use both 2-channel and single-channel, which is just a directional LiDAR that detects proximity of objects. So it's one-dimensional, really, just the distance, right? And we said, well, let's mount them in a way that can kind of line up with the curb, and then see if we can get detection at 20 feet, 100 feet, 80 feet. See what the detection zone would be for this LiDAR, and then run the test and see if we can detect pedestrians and what would be the detection rate. This is the picture of a location. And it's kind of interesting because there is almost like a gate to the campus at this location, so it's almost inviting pedestrians to cross at that location, that was more an architectural design kind of idea for campus, but we didn't really think about this factor of pedestrians, assuming that would be a good location to enter campus, which it is, but then there is no crossing here. There is a crossing here, and then there is another crossing like 100 feet down the street. So what we would do, what we did, and you'll see the pictures, we put these devices actually here at this speed, and we directed the LiDAR essentially along the curb. The LiDARs that we used actually had 100 feet range, and they were very actually accurate. We tried crossing at 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet, and the accuracy was spot on, almost 100% as we do. The only challenge was to line it up so that it doesn't hit I guess the signal should not hit any object in between, because then you're measuring the distance to that stationary object as opposed to measuring the distance to an object that just appears, which would be a pedestrian in our case. So 100 feet range, again, we went with a very small, you will see, and relatively cheap device. Runs between $100 and $300, depending on whether you want to get a single channel, like a directional or 2-channel LiDAR. And so, as pedestrians approach, they will start crossing. When they cross that line of sight, the detection is recorded, and that creates a digital signal that can be then sent to either a local alert system or can be sent wirelessly to some kind of connected vehicle or CV2X system. And when the message is received on the other end, you can either activate in our case we were using the flashing beacon, or you can activate a system that is installed in a vehicle where driver can actually see this alert in real time, right? So the components of the system that we tested in our experiment, lidars. This is a single channel, dual channel lidar. Both, we tried both. Not a big difference in terms of detection accuracy. So this is cheaper, but the issue is that this lidar, I keep touching it. I don't know. I guess I should. I'm used to it, but that is a directional, so it's one dimension, and it keeps just tracking the distance to the object facing the lidar. So it's not very convenient for any specific object recognition or detection of that kind. This is two-dimensional, so it's kind of ranging. So you can actually get a little bit more results in terms of ability to detect the movement of the object within the range, as opposed to just presence of the object. So this is presence, only this is presence and some ability to detect motion. For our experiment, really the detection of presence was the only thing we were focusing on. We used Arduino controller to process the signal from the lidar and create a control or implement a control algorithm that will then trigger the alert on the flashing beacon, right? So it's a very simple piece of code that essentially receives the signal, processes the signal from the lidar. If the detection is, if an object is detected within a certain distance, that triggers a code that sends a message to the flashing beacon, which what was it? Okay. Now I messed it up. Let me see. Okay, so then the flashing beacon starts flashing, the drivers get an alert, and they hopefully slow down for the pedestrians. The whole system in our experiment was just powered by the car battery, essentially. So it was, let's say, it was a portable system that can be put anywhere. Of course, it wasn't packaged nicely. It was kind of boxes and things from our lab, but kind of really wasn't a hard thing to put together in our lab. What we did as a proof of concept was mount this at this location, go out during nighttime, late evening, early nighttime, and conduct measurements where we still have traffic. And this was done during winter time when we had still a lot of traffic at nighttime, let's say 6:30, 7 p.m. It already was dark at that time, and there was still a lot of traffic at this location. So we had the opportunity to actually get a lot of vehicles that we can test this system on, and pedestrians. So we used, besides this alert system, we also used radar to measure the speed of vehicles as they were approaching the location. So besides knowing whether they are slowing down or not, right, which we can measure, we can also use that speed to see whether there was a significant difference between vehicle speed with this system in place and vehicle speed without this system in place. Because pedestrians will be crossing. The only difference is whether we are showing the alert or not. If we are showing the alert, we are hoping that drivers will slow down. If we are not showing the alert, we are thinking that probably they will have a different reaction. Maybe they will slow down, maybe they won't, right? Because pedestrians will be crossing either way. So we had an experiment that had two parts. First, we had pedestrians, bunch of us, students, myself, we were just crossing the street. And every time we do that, we measure the speed of vehicles as they're approaching us, right? We did that for half an hour, 40 minutes, I think, and then we turned on the system and we did the same thing. We just kept crossing the street and we were measuring the speed of vehicles as they were approaching. For that measurement of speed, we used radar, very similar to the radars that are installed on, probably you see traffic signs, your speed is so and so, slow down over there. So that's a sign that has a little radar in, somewhere, and that radar is measuring the speed of the approaching vehicles. We did the same thing. Very small radar was installed on the traffic sign. We were measuring the speed, and we also had a camera that was essentially video recording the traffic, the oncoming traffic. Why we did that was because we wanted to, number one, detect the timestamp, match the timestamp with the time when we are crossing, when pedestrians are crossing, timestamp of when the vehicles are coming, and then speed of vehicles that are actually first in line coming towards the pedestrian. And then, so we use some video analytics to track vehicle with timestamps and speeds. So we had kind of a little bit of machine learning application there as well for video analytics that was applied, but mostly to detect vehicles and their behavior rather than actually operate the system that we were testing. And so then, once we collected all the data, we analyzed the speeds of vehicles using two sample tests. It's a very simple test. I don't know if okay, I'll show that. That's a separate slide, so I'm not gonna. So this is how it looked like, So we had this contraption mounted at the location of that kind of gate. Then we were crossing right there. The detection zone was about 100 feet, and you can see this is, I think, my colleague, Dr. Lee. This is me crossing the street, and what we were doing is this is the actual video from that video camera that we mounted on the traffic sign. So the camera and the radar are here. You can see a camera. Camera is here, and the radar is right underneath, both measuring the speed and recording the video. And so from that, you can see here that we had speed recorded, and it was actually put directly on as an overlay on the video, so that we merged the video, the speed detection, speed recording. It was all patched onto one video, so we could actually, in our data processing, use this as as a data source, as opposed to using the data from the radar itself. So we kind of paired the picture and the speed recording, and then each vehicle was kind of detected. This vehicle, this speed. This vehicle, that speed. So it was kind of video detection and video analytics program that we developed using. I think we used Google TensorFlow or something. I don't remember anymore. I don't think we used more sophisticated at that time software. So the recordings were done for an hour, 5:30 to 6:30. It was already dark, 30 minutes each, with and without the PCA, the system. We were crossing. We had 915 vehicles with inactive PCA, meaning we didn't do any alerts. So 915 vehicles were passed through the location when we were crossing, and we actually did this in both directions. That's why it's kind of double the number. But we only installed our device in one direction, so we had 465 recorded vehicles with active device that was alerting them on the imminent pedestrian crossing. And we conducted, it's called two-sample t-test. It's a simple test, statistical analysis that the hypothesis, the null hypothesis is that two samples of speeds are identical, meaning they have identical mean value. Mean speed is identical. That's the hypothesis, null hypothesis. Alternative hypothesis is that these two mean speeds are not the same, right? So if we cannot, if we fail to confirm the null hypothesis, we can determine that the speeds are actually not the same. And what we are hoping is that not the same means the speeds, average speed with our system in place is lower, right? That was our hope. So the analysis showed that actually there was a shift in speed. Blue line represents the speed. This is a CDF, the cumulative distribution function of the probability that speed of a vehicle is a certain value. So you can see how that CDF function shifted from blue, which represents average speed without our system, to red, which means now we have a reduction in speed with the presence of our device. One thing, now this is anecdotal, and from the videos we could actually see that there were a lot of instances of vehicles actually not just slowing down but stopping or approaching near stop to let the pedestrians cross. We couldn't tell, but our assumption was that they didn't really see the pedestrian because it was nighttime. It wasn't easy to see the pedestrian until they stepped on the roadway. But they see a flashing beacon, they start slowing down. Eventually, some of them stop. We didn't see any of that happening without our device. Eventually, when we step on the roadway and we start crossing, sometimes maybe more aggressively, the drivers will slow down, but not as much as when the beacon was in place. So that kind of gave us a couple of, I guess, takeaways from the study. Number one is that this system is effective. Number one, it's effective in detecting pedestrians as they are about to cross. That's important because it's passive, so there is no pedestrian action is not required. And again, this system can be deployed using different technology, such as video, and most of the intersections that detect pedestrian movements are based on video detection. But this is also an alternative that is relatively affordable, cheap, and can be easily integrated and packaged for any application, and it could be portable. The other thing that we experimented with was the signal that we can actually package in a format that can be translated to a basic safety message that can be transmitted to drivers, to even in the future bikers, bicyclists, scooterists. I don't know if it's a word now, but those on scooterists, I don't know. Right, because there are also growing number of crashes, bicyclists running onto pedestrians, or scooterists, right, running onto pedestrians or each other. I don't know. So anyway, but from the pedestrian perspective, I think going forward, this CV2X, meaning connected vehicle to everything, platform can be utilized to transmit these messages, as opposed to, and not just transmit, but also deliver the messages to drivers, riders, whoever is, in some way mobile, using some kind of mobility device or vehicle, to alert them on presence of the pedestrians, and especially in places, locations when it's not easily, it is not easy to visually confirm or see the pedestrians as they are about to cross. For example, curbs, or locations where you have parking, on-street parking, where with buses, vans, larger vehicles parked, blocking the view, the field of view for the pedestrians that may be crossing behind them. So having these kinds of devices that can either alert visually, or technology that can detect and deliver the message wirelessly to users, I think it will be a very effective way of protecting pedestrians as they cross. Further than that, and Dr. Lee, my colleague, is actually working now on that application. We tested already, and it's pretty good, but it needs some tweaks. If you have a phone, this can be your detection device. So if you are connected into a system that can geofence locations that are next to the curbs, next to streets where there are either crosswalks or your behavior suggests that you are about to cross. If you have let's say an app that communicates with this CV2X system, you can send an alert to everyone around you that you are about to cross the street, using essentially the same protocol, the same platform, but now the detection is different. It's not infrastructure based, it's not mounted on infrastructure, it goes with you, and that gets the alert over to anyone within certain range, let's say drivers that are about to pass that location. They can get a message that there is one or two or multiple pedestrians about to cross right in front of them. And before they get there, they can actually see this message, and hopefully that brings some awareness and alerts them to kind of adjust their driving if necessary. Anyway, so that was this little project and some findings, and the more important, I guess, outcome is a couple of other projects that we launched internally, working on different technologies that kind of an outgrowth of this project that we conducted at NJIT. So that's all I had. I didn't really put any formulas on purpose, but I'm willing to show more if necessary. But any questions you may have either about technology, the project, or anything else, I'll be glad to answer. Yes?
Did you find you had any problems with the LiDAR occluding during inclement weather?
No.
Particularly snow?
Not. Well, that's a good question. In this experiment, it wasn't it wasn't raining, it wasn't snowing, right? We didn't do that. But we did test same LiDAR in some other locations. For example, we were doing some tests with actual directional LiDAR to detect trucks as they enter truck parking facility, and it was there was no problem. Snow or rain. It was out there for like a month, and it was just detecting like when the truck comes, I guess the proximity of the object changes. So you are detecting a tree, which is, I don't know, 20 feet away. When the truck passes through, now it's no longer 20 feet. Now the object is like 3 feet away.
There was no tuning gap or anything?
No because it's a very simple application, right?
And you had no problems with particulate buildup on the lenses?
No, not really. No. This one was on a pole, like a light pole. We did have you put a little bit of like a visor on top of it, but there was not. I can't tell you whether it was like an ice on it or anything like that. I don't think so.
Yeah, just other LiDARs I put out have had problems from diesel smoke, particularly on the lenses.
Oh, okay.
Over time.
This was even at the truck stop, so that's where you should see diesel fumes. But no, we didn't have that issue. But I can tell you, I cannot tell or be 100% certain for this particular application because it was only done during relatively nice weather. We did a lot of experiments with this before the experiment that I just reported, because we had to tune it and make sure that that it can detect 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 80 feet away. So when you get the LiDAR, it gives you they come with a bunch of specs, and you should trust some of them, but some of them you really want to confirm in practice, so that if you need to tune your device, you know what you're dealing with. Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
I'm wondering about during the hours that you conducted the experiment, was street parking allowed?
Yes.
So did you have any issues with a driver pulling up, parking, and then getting out and crossing through the detection zone, but not crossing the street?
We had we indeed. I mean, I remember watching the videos. Yeah, there were actually vehicles that were pulling out from parking spots. That was that's the time when some of the classes end, and I think probably somebody was parked there for the class. They left. We had few vehicles leaving the parking spots. I don't believe we had anyone actually parking there, but that did not really trigger any change because vehicles were actually further away from the detection zone. Within the detection zone, let's say in a scenario, you park the car, right? So to get to the car, you need to step on the curb, then go around, open the door, get to the car. So you're gonna trigger that for sure. Yeah. So you're not really a pedestrian trying to cross, but you are a pedestrian who is stepping on the roadway, and at least for that little while where you're opening the door and getting to the car, you are, I think, endangered. You are vulnerable user, right? So it may actually not be a bad thing to detect those as well, and flash, although you are not really crossing, but you are stepping on the roadway, and you know, are putting yourself in a danger.
Thank you. All right, thank you. And to give us 1 minute, we're going to get started with the next presentation.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me here. Today I'm going to be talking about a project that I've been working on regarding the emerging countermeasures for pedestrian safety. The project was funded by NJDOT and VTC. Here is the list of the team members from VO1 and VTC. In terms of the objectives of the project, we wanted to conduct a comprehensive literature review on the effectiveness of intelligent transportation system-based countermeasures on pedestrian safety, and also the impact of ITS-based countermeasure on road users' behavior. After conducting the literature review, we divided the countermeasure into four major categories: signal-based countermeasures, sign-based countermeasures, in-pavement countermeasures, and automatic pedestrian detection. And there were also some countermeasures which were provided by different companies, but the effectiveness were not evaluated by any study. During the project, we faced some limitations, including lack of data on the effectiveness of the countermeasures, lack of implementation criteria, lack of cost information, lack of education on the application of the countermeasures, and also lack of inventory. In terms of sign-based countermeasure, we had pedestrian hybrid beacons, which consists of two red lanes above and a yellow lanes below them. They are dark before activation, and when they are activated by a pedestrian, they will start flashing and steady yellow, and then when the pedestrians start crossing, they will be steady red, and then flashing red, and they will be dark again. The results of different studies showed that this countermeasure will result in up to 69% reduction in pedestrian crashes, and also it will cause up to 96% driving yielding rate and decrease in pedestrian and vehicle conflicts. The countermeasure cost from $21,000 to $128,000, and the typical location, installation location based on the reviewed studies were crossing where vehicle volume and vehicle operating speed were high, but the traffic signal barriers were not met, and where vehicle volume were more than 39,000 vehicles per day, and pedestrian volume were more than 400 per day, and number of lanes were between 4 and 6, and the speed limit were between 30 to 50 miles per hour, and they were also successfully installed at school crossings, and also parks and senior centers. The next countermeasure is leading pedestrian intervals, which allows pedestrians to start crossing 3 to 7 seconds prior to vehicles' green light. So it will enable pedestrians to establish their presence at the crosswalk before the vehicles start turning right or left. And the results of different studies shows up to 58.7% reduction in pedestrian crashes and up to 80% increase in left-turning drivers who yell to the pedestrian, and also up to 31% increase in the percentage of pedestrians who start crossing the crosswalk at the beginning of the walkways. The cost of altering the timing of the signal is about $3,500, and they were typically installed at intersection without high pedestrian volume, and also where average vehicle volume were 13,000, more than 13,000 per day, and they were location where they had a history of pedestrian crashes, and number of lanes were between 2 and 4, and the speed limit were between 25 to 30 miles per hour. The next countermeasure is responsive push button, which gives audible and visible response upon being pressed. And the results of different studies showed reduction in the number of trapped pedestrians, and also reduction in the percentage of pedestrians who violate the signal. They cost between $800 and $1,200, and they were typically installed at intersections that operate with actuated pedestrian motor vehicle detection and location with 25 miles per hour speed limit. The next countermeasure is pedestrian countdown signal, which they are designed to start counting down at the clearance interval, and they can be on fixed time or push button operation. And the result of different studies shows that this countermeasure reduced pedestrian crashes by up to 70%, and they increase the percentage of pedestrians who look for vehicles before starting crossing the crosswalk. And they cost from $190 to $1,930, and they were typically installed at locations where the traffic signal of vehicles are not visible to pedestrians, and where the signal is complicated, the traffic signal timing is complicated, and they were also installed at school crossings, and where the speed limit was from 35 to 45 miles per hour, and they should be ideally installed at every signalized intersection. The next countermeasure is cutting crossing, which enables pedestrians to call for a walk and extends the walkways when it is necessary. The results of different studies, actually one study for this one, showed that this countermeasure decreased the number of pedestrian crashes by 24%, and it costs from $80,000 to $150,000. And they are usually installed at locations where the number of pedestrians who age above 65 and number of pedestrians who are number of disabled pedestrians are high, and they can be installed with traditional signals and also PHVs. In terms of sign-based countermeasure, we had rectangular rapid flashing beacons, which enables pedestrians to cross the crosswalk more safely by drawing drivers' attention to the sign. And the result of different studies shows that this countermeasure results in up to 92% driver yielding rate and reduced pedestrian and vehicle conflicts. And they cost from $4,500 to $52,000. And they are typically installed at uncontrolled marked crosswalk with a pedestrian, school, or trail sign. And they are also usually installed at a location where the visibility is limited, such as S-curves and hills. And average vehicle volume were about 7,000 vehicles per day, and number of lanes were 2 to 4, and speed limits were 35 to 40 miles per hour. The next countermeasure is flashing LED signs, which are used at pedestrian crossings. They showed that they can result in up to 80% driving yielding rate, and they will also decrease the speed of vehicles approaching the crosswalk. They cost from $1,000 to $800, and they are usually installed at crosswalks where the operating speed and the traffic volume are high, and lanes are narrow, and usually at typical sidewalks. Number of lanes are maximum 4, and the speed limit is 35 miles per hour in those spaces. The next countermeasure is speed monitoring trailer, which displays the speed of approaching vehicles in order to enhance speed compliance enforcement, and they result in increase in driver yielding rate and decrease in pedestrian delay. They cost from $7,000 to $18,000, and they are typically installed at residential areas and areas where speeding is a problem, and also areas with a speed limit of 25 to 45 miles per hour. The next one is radar speed sign, which also shows the speed of the approaching vehicle, and it shows that it can slow down up to 80% of speeding vehicles, and also up to 20% reduction in vehicle speeds, and up to 60% increase in the number of vehicles who drive within the speed limit. And they cost from $2,000 to $3,900, and they're typically installed at locations where speeding is a problem, and also school zones. In terms of in-pavement countermeasures, we found in-pavement flashing LED light system, which consists of lights embedded in crosswalks in both sides of the crosswalk, and they result in increase in the number of increase in driver yielding rate, and also decrease the mean speed of vehicle approaching the crosswalk. They cost from $12,000 to $20,000, and there is a cost of maintenance for them. And they are typically installed at uncontrolled crosswalks, school crossings, and where number of lanes are 2 to 4, and speed limit is 35 miles per hour. Regarding pedestrian warning systems, we found automatic pedestrian detection device and smart lighting, which uses ultrasonic and microwave radars to detect pedestrian, and then uses smart lighting in order to illuminate the crosswalk. The results showed up to 70% increase in the number of diverted pedestrians, and up to 15% reduction in the number of trapped pedestrians, and up to 13% increase in driver yielding rate. And they cost from $10,000 to $70,000, and they are typically installed at intersection and mid-block crossings, and where the vehicle traffic is more than 37,000 per day, and number of lanes per 4, speed limit was 35 miles per hour, and also location where there is a history of pedestrian crashes. Other countermeasures, as I mentioned before, there are no studies evaluating their effectiveness, and we get this information from the website of the companies which they provide them. The first one is crosswalk illuminator, which consists of a floodlight that illuminates the crosswalk approach, and a beam which illuminates the middle of the crosswalk, and they increase pedestrian visibility at poorly lit locations, and they are installed at uncontrolled crossings where trails intersect with residential areas, and where the average vehicle volume is 1,000 per day, and number of lanes is 4. The other one is overhead lighting, which uses a LED light to illuminate the crosswalk, and it also helps pedestrians to cross the crosswalk more visibly and safely. and they are also implemented at uncontrolled crossings and mid-block crossings, and they were also installed at locations where they had a history of pedestrian crashes. The last countermeasure is flashing LED state law stop for pedestrian crosswalk sign, which consists of LEDs around the sign to make the sign visible at different time of the day and different weather conditions, and they increase the awareness of the drivers of the sign, and they cost from $1,500 to $2,500, and they are installed at uncontrolled crossing and mid-block crossing. In this table, we have the list of the countermeasure and their crash reduction factor and whether or not they are proven by FHWA. As you can see, pedestrian countdown signal had the highest crash reduction factor, is 0.7, followed by pedestrian hybrid beacon, leading pedestrian interval, and rectangular rapid flashing beacon, which are all FHWA proven. And also we have puffing crossing with crash reduction factor of 0.24, which is not FHWA proven countermeasure, and the rest of them there were no crash reduction factor available for them, and they are not FHWA proven. And in this chart, you can see the recommended countermeasure based on the characteristics of the location where you want to install the countermeasure, whether it's an intersection or mid-block, and according to the speed limit, whether the speed limit is less than 40 miles per hour or it's more than 40 miles per hour. And that's it. Thank you so much. I will be happy to answer if there is any question.
All right, so welcome back everybody to the last session of the day, and we have Sam Rosenthal here. He is a research project coordinator at the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University. He will be presenting on effective public engagement practices and resources to promote safety and advance equity. And go ahead.
Cool, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Sam Rosenthal, and as Shane mentioned, I work as a research project coordinator at the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, which is part of the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers. The New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center is funded by NJDOT and assists public officials, transportation and health professionals, and the public in creating safer and more accessible walking and bicycling environments by conducting research, offering technical assistance, and providing resources on best practices in active transportation policy and design. So today I'm going to be discussing a few resources that are available to help with public engagement with a specific focus on complete and green streets projects that promote safety and advance equity. Before I begin, I'd just like to acknowledge NJDOT as funders of the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, as well as many of the resources that I'm going to be discussing in this presentation. So just a quick outline, I'm going to start, it's kind of divided into two sections. I'm going to start with an overview of complete streets best practices for complete streets engagement that were culled from a 2020 survey administered by the Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center, which collected information about complete streets outreach, educational, and engagement activities conducted by professionals across the country. I'm then going to highlight some New Jersey-specific complete streets engagement resources, and I'm going to conclude by discussing a few additional complete streets resources in New Jersey, including NJDOT-sponsored complete streets summits and trainings, as well as additional NJDOT reports and guides that are available to assist you. So first, let me just provide a brief definition of complete streets for those of you who may not be familiar. Simply put, complete streets are designed for all users, all modes of transportation, and all abilities. They respond to local needs and contexts such as roadway type, topography, density of development, adjacent land use, and street connectivity. Instituting a complete streets policy ensures that agencies routinely design and operate the entire right-of-way to enable safe access for all users. From its inception several decades ago, the concept of complete streets has always emphasized safe and accessible accommodation of all road users. But in recent years, advocates of complete streets have expanded the concept to include green streets components like green stormwater infrastructure, as well as an expanded focus on health and equity in transportation expenditures and project selection. The New Jersey Department of Transportation adopted a statewide complete streets policy in 2009, and in the 13 years since then, 173 towns and 8 counties have passed their own complete streets policies. Policies continue to be passed each year, but there is still a long way to go. And this is where engagement strategies can help. So through effective and meaningful engagement with planners, engineers, municipal officials, and residents, communities can more successfully and equitably advance complete streets policies and implement complete streets projects. So this brings us to the survey. So in the fall of 2020, the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center partnered with Smart Growth America to distribute a nationwide survey on complete streets engagement practices. Over 500 responses to the survey were collected from planning and policy professionals and complete streets advocates representing nonprofits, government planning and health departments, and private consultants. More than half of the respondents represented either an advocacy group, community organization, or local government, and 80% of respondents indicated having a complete streets task force or bicycle and pedestrian advisory group in their region. The survey results showed that an overwhelming share of respondents viewed complete streets engagement efforts as a way to build support for projects and programs, while a much smaller percentage of respondents used engagement either as a means to either educate the public or gather feedback related to complete streets efforts, which indicates that most of those surveyed see engagement as a one-way channel of communication. With respect to engaging vulnerable populations, there were mixed results. As you can see, while it was more common for respondents to make efforts to engage with low-income populations, minority populations, and older adults, it was less common to engage with youth and differently abled individuals. The survey found that the primary methods of engagement used by respondents were social media, technology, school organizations, and community events. Respondents indicated that social media and technology in particular have been useful tools since the pandemic has limited in-person meetings and events. Respondents indicated using social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to share project updates, publicize meetings, promote surveys, and gather input. Some respondents noted that social media can be an efficient, and cost-effective way to engage with other people about complete streets and active transportation safety issues, but also noted at the same time it can limit the audience to like-minded parties. With respect to technology, most respondents reported using simple internet applications like websites, emails, virtual meeting platforms like Zoom and Microsoft Teams, and online survey tools like SurveyMonkey and Google Forms. Some respondents highlighted more creative ways of collecting input using technology, such as interactive mapping and virtual walkthroughs using drones that provide detailed information about ongoing projects. These types of outreach efforts can provide excellent opportunities to collect feedback from audiences that may not otherwise be interested in participating in engagement efforts. Respondents also indicated leveraging existing resources like PTAs, safe routes programs, and community events to interact with people using existing communication channels. Respondents noted working closely with existing safe routes to school programs to conduct walk and bike audits in school zones, as well as partnering with PTAs to engage with parents, students, and teachers through monthly newsletters. With respect to community events, respondents identified a variety of events including pop-up booths, bike rides, walking tours and audits, walk to school and car-free days, bike months, community fairs, design charrettes, guest lectures, and open houses to spread information and gather feedback. Several state and local health departments reported hosting guest lecture series and community conversations. Other community organizations reported using community events as a way to gather public input on legislative proposals and set priorities regarding equity. Beyond these more commonly used methods of engagement, some respondents also noted technical trainings, targeted stakeholder meetings, postcard mailings, and free driver education programs as ways to engage with people on active transportation and complete streets topics. One factor related to engagement that was consistently emphasized by survey respondents was the importance of collaborating with key stakeholders like neighborhood associations, local nonprofits, and community organizations who have strong social connections with community members, in addition to other stakeholders like planning and health departments and economic development organizations. Some of the respondents also noted employing a variety of engagement methods to try and reach as many people as possible. For instance, the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency in Florida executed an extensive public engagement plan for a multimodal study that identified transit, bicycle, and pedestrian improvements along US 1 in Palm Beach County. The plan included a range of outreach methods, including in-person workshops, design charrettes, online interactive maps, in-person interviews, social media posts, and quality of life and transit surveys. The in-person workshops and charrettes were hosted at local community centers, clubhouses, art centers, event spaces, and town halls. The team invited key interest groups from diverse backgrounds to participate in the process, and as a result of this comprehensive engagement effort, the Palm Beach TPA received extensive input with over 450 event attendees, over 130 comments on the online map, more than 100 stakeholder and personal interviews, and over 100 responses to their survey. The city of Ann Arbor in Michigan likewise implemented a strong public engagement strategy in updating its comprehensive transportation plan, which included focus groups targeted at the general public, seniors and minority populations, behavioral, perception, and comfort surveys conducted online and in person, public open houses, committee meetings and pop-up events, online interactive maps and emails, and social media campaigns. The city received a high rate of response for their efforts, including about 120 focus group participants, 4,400 survey responses, 6,300 interactive map entries, and 150 event participants. And the city of Keene in New Hampshire organized a one-day tactical urbanism and placemaking event installing temporary bike lanes, parklets, and crosswalks using low-cost materials such as traffic tape, potted plants, and freestanding plastic bollards to garner feedback on proposed street improvements for a specific corridor. This event, which involved a partnership between the city, a local hospital, and the Regional Planning Commission, demonstrates how interagency partnerships can strengthen engagement efforts and allow project planners to reach a wider and more diverse audience. So to summarize the findings from the survey, first, collaboration with key stakeholders is essential. Stakeholders will vary depending on the type of project and where it is happening, but may include neighborhood associations, local nonprofits, community organizations, health departments, economic development organizations, and housing authorities who have, again, strong social connections with community members. Connecting with people through existing community organizations and agencies also provides a way to engage with underrepresented groups who have traditionally been excluded from the planning process, such as low-income individuals, people of color, youth, older adults, and differently abled individuals. The case studies also show that hosting events at local community or art centers can be an effective way of engaging with community members. Meeting people where they are makes involvement in the planning process more accessible and broadens the reach of engagement efforts. Also noteworthy is that the majority of respondents indicated using the pandemic as an opportunity to advocate for open streets, expanded sidewalks, and more active transportation infrastructure. And about a third of respondents successfully implemented these measures. So if you're interested in learning more about any of these initiatives that I just mentioned, I would recommend checking out the full report, which is on the njbikeped.org website under the Reports tab. So now I'm going to talk about a few New Jersey-specific publicly accessible resources that can assist with Complete Streets engagement efforts. So this will be the NJTPA's Public Engagement Toolkit, NJDOT's Complete and Green Streets Model Policy and Guide, and the NJTPA Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program. So first, NJTPA's Public Engagement Toolkit provides resources and information to help plan and execute public involvement activities. The toolkit includes three main components: the Engage database, tips for planning and executing engagement, and a list of other resources, including NJTPA focus group reports and interviews with leading practitioners. Let me see if this will play. All right. So the Engage database offers hundreds of specific tools and approaches for conducting public engagement, searchable by audience, scale, geography, type of tool, time frame, or keyword. Each tool includes a description and links to examples of the tool in action. The ability to filter tools based on different audiences, such as low-income individuals, minorities, seniors, or youth, can also help identify engagement techniques that are equitable and accessible. In addition to the database, the Public Engagement Toolkit also provides tips for planning and executing engagement in the form of PDFs. These include summaries of best practices, fact sheets on specific engagement techniques, and fillable worksheets to help you plan your outreach. Together, these resources provide valuable guidance for those seeking to identify appropriate engagement methods for a particular project. So this is an example of one of the fact sheets that they have. Another resource is NJDOT's Complete and Green Streets Model Policy and Guide. The guide is a one-stop resource for New Jersey municipalities, counties, agencies, organizations, and advocates with an interest in implementing complete streets in their communities. The guide provides model complete streets policy language with an emphasis on equitable implementation of complete streets. The model language acknowledges that low and moderate income areas, whether rural, urban, or suburban communities, are typically the least safe for pedestrians and bicyclists due to long-standing infrastructure disparities, and calls for fair treatment, equitable funding, and resource distribution, and meaningful involvement of all communities in all phases from project selection, planning, and design to construction and long-term maintenance. The model policy language also establishes a Complete Streets Advisory Committee composed of diverse stakeholders, including community members, representing persons with disabilities, seniors, youth organizations, and persons representing priority communities to provide ongoing support and feedback on complete streets implementation. Through funds provided by the NJTPA, the Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program supports New Jersey municipalities in their efforts to develop and advance complete streets projects by offering free technical assistance provided by Sustainable Jersey and the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers. Since every municipality has different needs, the program helps to advance complete streets by documenting existing conditions, exploring opportunities for improvement, and providing recommendations. The program currently offers technical assistance for 5 different types of complete streets projects: bicycle corridor network plan, complete streets conceptual renderings, temporary demonstration project guidance, walkable community workshops, and complete and green streets for all policy guidance. Eligible applicants include municipal governments within the 13 counties that comprise the NJTPA region, and participants are selected through a competitive application process. For the current 2022 to 2023 program, seven municipalities were selected to receive technical assistance services, which are Belleville, Brown Brook, Dunellen, Oakland, Passaic, Plainfield, and Seaside Heights. These projects are ongoing and will be completed by February 2023. With all 5 types of projects in the technical assistance program, engagement is an essential component. This can include surveys distributed through social media and attendance at community events. Depending on the project, engagement at community events may include poster boards with visual preference surveys in which residents can vote with dot stickers and write comments. The project team seeks out events that will not only attract a large number of people, but those which provide opportunities to engage with traditionally underrepresented groups. With walkable community workshops, the project team engages municipal officials, regional transportation management association representatives, and residents in a workshop and site visit to a particular street corridor to collectively identify potential pedestrian and bicycle improvements. The workshop and audit are publicized through flyers and social media. For temporary demonstration projects, for example, the team provides guidance on the design and installation of pedestrian and bicycle temporary safety measures, which the municipality can use as a means to gather feedback on proposed changes to a street or intersection before fully committing to a permanent project. Completed project summary reports from the previous 2 rounds of the technical assistance program are available again on the njbikeped.org website under the reports tab. And now I'm just going to talk about a few additional opportunities to learn more about complete streets in New Jersey. The first is the New Jersey Complete Streets Summit, which is a free biennial event sponsored by NJDOT, which features a series of speakers and sessions on complete streets policies, planning, implementation, funding, and more. After the first two summits in 2010 and 2013, the Complete Streets Summit has become a tradition every 2 years, with the most recent summit occurring virtually in October of 2021. The summit brings together hundreds of planners, engineers, advocates, and policymakers from around the state to network, exchange knowledge, and learn from speakers about best practices for planning and implementing complete streets policies and projects. The primary goal of the summit is to empower people to improve safety in their communities by presenting best practices and resources and providing a forum to connect with peers from across the state to learn about local complete streets projects and funding opportunities. The most recent Complete Streets Summit, as I mentioned, was held virtually in October of 2021 and was attended by over 340 people. The 2021 summit celebrated over 10 years of complete streets in New Jersey, and sessions focused on complete streets policy adoption, lessons learned from implementation over the past decade, and what may be in store for complete streets over the next 10 years. Each of the summit sessions incorporated a short video exploring the history of complete streets in New Jersey, with experts from NJDOT, MPOs, universities, and advocacy groups discussing what complete streets mean, how their definition has evolved over time, and how they continue to support the development of safe and accessible multimodal environments that are also healthy, prosperous, and resilient. These videos are available to view anytime on the NewJerseyBikePed.org website and the New Jersey Bicycle and Pedestrian Resource Center YouTube channel. In addition to the Complete Streets Summit, NJDOT also sponsors periodic Complete Streets trainings. The current iteration of the training is a 3-hour online session consisting of 3 modules covering complete streets fundamentals, from the benefits of complete streets to the planning and design elements needed to implement them in your community. The training is designed for planners, engineers, advocates, public health professionals, policymakers, elected officials, and really anyone who's looking to learn more about complete and green streets. The training aims to help participants better understand the benefits of implementing complete streets, the evolution of the complete streets concept, the integration of placemaking with complete streets, and best practices for complete and green streets design guidance. Both the New Jersey Complete Streets Summit and the Complete Streets Training provide opportunities to engage on topics like complete streets design principles and best practices for implementation. Both events include opportunities for participants to ask questions of complete streets experts, and this year's virtual Complete Streets trainings involve an interactive design exercise where participants collectively discuss potential complete streets solutions to real-world examples of incomplete streets. This year, 3 online trainings were scheduled, with each focusing on a different region of New Jersey. The first 2 sessions have already occurred, but the final session runs tomorrow, October 27th, from 1 to 4 p.m. This session is going to focus on examples from South Jersey, but anyone is welcome to attend, to register and attend, and registration information can be found on the njbikeped.org website under the New Jersey Complete Streets Training webpage. And I encourage you to sign up if you are interested in attending. Finally, in addition to the summit and training, NJDOT has a growing collection of guides and resources, including the Complete Streets Design Guide, the School Zone Design Guide and Bicycle Parking Guides, and the Complete and Green Streets Model Policy Guide that I discussed earlier. Each of these guides are a compilation of current best practices and support NJDOT's vision for New Jersey to be a place where people of all ages and abilities can routinely and conveniently bicycle and walk with confidence, safety, and security. So that's all I have for today. Here's my contact info and a link to the njbikeped.org website, and I'll take any questions if you have them. Yes?
Can you go back a couple slides to
Sure.
that PDA ring that we were showing? Yeah, right there. To the right, or on the right side, is that something that Complete Streets recommends with having that curve like that? So you see on the right-hand side, on the opposite side of the PBI, you
Mm-hmm.
can see that there's the curve that's
Mm.
there instead of having a proper flare. Does Complete Street support that?
I would answer that question is that Complete Streets is consistent with all NJDOT design standards, roadway design manual, national design standards. And if that, for whatever reason, is not compliant from your perspective, then no, we would not be advocating for that. Complete Streets does not advocate for non-compliance with other design standards. It's consistent with that.
Yes, right. Thank you. Good answer.
So sometimes a photo picks up things that maybe the photo shouldn't pick up.
Yeah. Fair enough. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you.
All right, thank you everybody for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your days.